I'm in the beautiful city of Prizren, whose cobbled streets and well-preserved mosques and churches reflect a colorful history that goes back more than 1,000 years. This is a small city with about 180,000 inhabitants. There's a vitality here that's palpable, with a vibrant cafe scene and a casual air about it that makes this an ideal place to experience old world charm in the Balkans. Of course, this is Kosovo. The pleasantness has come at great cost with a lot of modern day bloodshed. And although you wouldn't guess it from appearances these days, there remains a sense of unease here. For those unfamiliar, Kosovo is a landlocked country of about 2 million people that's about the size of the American state of Delaware. I'm walking along the Lombardy River, or as it's also known, the Prizren Bastrika. It flows through the middle of the old quarter with a handsome promenade on each side. And as you can probably hear in the background, it happens to be a noontime call to prayer. Kosovo is overwhelmingly a Muslim enclave of ethnic Albanians, although it still has a few Serbian Orthodox and Roman Catholics who didn't flee after the breakaway from Serbia. For that reason, of course, Albanian is the primary language here. The key thing to know is that it's a partially recognized country, having declared its independence from Serbia in 2008. And although many countries of the United Nations recognize it, others, including China, Russia, and India, do not. It goes without saying that the first and foremost on that list is Serbia, which is why a UN peacekeeping force exists along the border with Serbia, a border that's essentially closed. Although the Serbians have come around to economic normalization with Kosovo, they still view it as an autonomous region within Serbia after all the on-again, off-again fighting, including a full-scale war in 1998 and 99, and what's euphemistically referred to as the unrest in 2004. I'm walking over the Lombardy River in the middle of the old quarter from maybe the city's most beloved landmark, referred to as the Old Stone Bridge, because that's exactly what it is, an old stone bridge. It's one of several old bridges over the river, but owing to its location connecting historic squares on either side of the river, it's the most prominent one and the oldest, having been built during the 1500s. This bridge was wiped out by flood in 1979, and people here were heartbroken, but they rallied to make sure that it was rebuilt, and so it was. There are several well-known mosques in Prizren, but none more iconic than the Sinan Pasha Mosque, built by the Ottomans in the early 1600s under the direction of the high-ranking Ottoman official for whom it is named. Some of the original paintings on the walls have been lost because of rain damage down through the years, and there's been weathering of the facade. But this remains a gorgeous example of early Ottoman architecture in the region. Interestingly, the city a few years ago wanted to build a library within the mosque as a way of preserving original Ottoman manuscripts kept here, as well as other important manuscripts from elsewhere in Kosovo. But an Islamic group filed a lawsuit to prevent it. They didn't want it to become a museum. They wanted it to remain a fully functioning mosque, and it has. The stones to build this mosque were taken from a nearby Serbian Orthodox monastery that was abandoned after the Ottoman Empire claimed control of the region 4 centuries ago. The name Prizren first turns up in manuscripts from about 1,000 years ago, but of course the town is much older than that, and it's always been protected by a fort on the hill above it as early as 2000 BC. And that fort is where I'm setting off for at the moment. Prizren Fort. That is at least my intention. It's a long climb up. Well, I've come to the first fork in the road here. I'm still down in the city, of course, so I can't really see the fortress from this vantage point. I've already gotten 2 or 3 different suggestions on how to get there. But I found a sign that looks as though it might be the Albanian word for fortress on this telephone pole. The problem is maybe you can see, the arrow, you can't determine whether it's telling you to take the street to the left or take the street straight on. It's anybody's guess. But I think that what I'll do is just use my intuition and go straight up and see what happens. As you climb this trail, one of the first things that you come upon is what you see behind me. That's the Church of the Holy Savior, or at least what's left of it behind the fence. This one-time marvelous Serbian Orthodox church is only a shell of its former self. It was essentially gutted during the violence of 2004, the so-called unrest that caused a further exodus of ethnic Serbs from the Kosovo region. That's in addition to those who'd already left or were driven out by the 1998-99 war. In this case, we're talking about a church built in the year 1330 and considered a national treasure within Serbia. In fact, it's a bit ironic, but the Serbian Orthodox Church got its start here in the part of the country that's now Kosovo. I don't really want to compare the situation between Kosovo's Muslims and Serbia's Christians to that of Palestine and Israel, but there are some common denominators: historical grievance, hatred, and a long-standing cycle of violence. That said, even with the tensions here and periodic violence along the Serbia-Kosovo border, there are a minority of Orthodox and Catholics in Prizren. And as you can tell, if you come here by listening to the church bells that ring off and on during the day, along with the Muslim calls to prayer. Well, I've read in a couple of places that it's a 15-minute walk from the old quarter up to the fortress. And all I've got to say about that is that the people who've made that claim either have no sense of time or they've never actually been here. From this vantage point, as I move further up the hill, you can actually look down inside the hollowed out church, and you can just see that it is a hollow shell, pretty much destroyed inside, with no roof and a barren interior. Well, I made it to the top, and I've got to say the view is not disappointing. What an ideal spot for a fort, on a hill that's been leveled at the top, surrounded by other hills and mountains off to the distance, where you have a bird's eye view of the city down below and the valley that spreads out beyond Prizren. As a bird would fly, we're less than 12 miles from the border with Albania to the southwest, and a little more than that to North Macedonia's border to the south. And the mountains you see behind me to the northwest are the accursed mountains, or the Albanian Alps on that country's border with Montenegro. This fort has gone through various iterations since it was built around 2000 BC. It was rebuilt several times, including by the Roman Emperor Justinian around 1,500 years ago. The Byzantines used it as the protector of the kingdom of Dardania, which long ago vanished. For a couple of hundred years, starting in the 1200s CE, it was the property of one or another Serbian feudal kingdom. And then, of course, for 4 centuries or so afterward, it was under Turkish Ottoman control. Much of what you see here is the result of the last rebuild of the fort under the Ottomans in the 1800s. Well, one of the beauties of making a climb like that, which by the way was totally worth it, is that it's easy going down. Piece of cake.
Looking down on this marvelous valley, it's hard to reconcile the beauty with the bloodshed, or the concept of Kosovo as a tranquil oasis surrounded by international peacekeepers. Tomorrow, I'll see if the capital, Pristina, feels any different.